unfortunately, part of it, it's gender. You want to be a wife, a mother, which unfortunately still carries more burden compared to a man in a relationship. Do you like interacting with the patients? I know it sounds very stupid. Of course, your dogs are going to interact with the patients, but not all the time. Um, First of all, I lost a year after matric because I came from Umlazi and my parents moved from one place to the other. Hi guys, thank you very much for being part of this family. Today we are on episode 3, hosted by not me, but by Mwande Mapumulo, Creative Replay. This guy who's made it all happen for me. Thank you for all the interaction, and hopefully we'll get to as many of you as possible. So, Hard with him Unplugged. Welcome back.
Episode 3.
Episode 3.
I'm actually excited about this one. Yeah. So what are we chatting
Well,
about
I'm not
today?
even sure if I'm the person to talk about it because obviously I'm biased. So today we're going to be talking to everyone, but in particularly young doctors, maybe medical students as well, whether to specialize or not. Upfront, no one can give you the exact answer. It's going to be a feel. What is it that feels good to you? But I think before you decide whether you want to specialize or not, you're going to look at your life. Unfortunately, part of it, it's gender. You want to be a wife, a mother, which unfortunately still carries more burden compared to a man in a relationship. So those things do count. Where you want to be at. You want to be in an urban area or you want to be in a rural area. Sadly, do you want to stay in South Africa or you want to emigrate? I mean, those are all the things you have to think about. And there's nothing wrong with the world being a global village. And I remember when I was in medical school and people talking about doing Great Britain exams and USA exams. And I'm like, I'll never leave the country. No, I mean, I came from Umlazi. I mean, that's an oyster for me. But things do change, so you've got to factor all those things in. It's not just now, it's about what you may want to consider in the future. Because right away, if you are a family physician, which is in high demand everywhere in the world, particularly us, it's going to be difficult for you to get a job overseas or go overseas to work. This is now all relative, right? Relative to the doctors. But if you're a specialist, you're more likely to get a job overseas.
That's good.
Yeah. So, having said all those things and having been upfront that I cannot answer you, I can just tell you what I feel and what I've seen. All right. So, the other thing that we haven't spoken about is I'm assuming that you've done medicine because you love it, not because your parents have forced you to do it. Okay, which is another topic for another day. Yeah. If medicine is what you want, then within medicine, you know that you can have geriatric medicine, you can pediatrics and everything in between. You can have scalpel, knife, or use a stethoscope only. So there are different specialties.
So while you're saying that, I'm trying to think of, so what would define the main difference between being a generalist and a specialist beyond, training?
Well, part of it is which is important, it's a period of training, right? So as a doctor now in South Africa, you need to complete your usual 6-year degree. Then you have to be an intern for 2 years. Then you have to do community service, which is a very great idea. And not because it kind of works for South African indigent population that we get these doctors, pharmacists, and other very important healthcare workers, biokineticists, pharmacists into areas of need. So once you've done that period of time, you've done your community services, then you can open your private practice. There's a singleton practice that you, Dr. Vezi, GP, Mtwalume, or you could be with other doctors, GPs, or you could have a psychologist, a dentist, a biokineticist in a group practice, Obviously, it can be lonely being alone in the practice. So those are the other things. But the, some of the differences is, do you like interacting with the patients? I know it sounds very stupid. Of course, your doctor going to interact with the patients, but not all the time. For instance, if you become a radiologist, your contact with the patient doctor contact time is less than if you are a specialist physician, intensivist. Do you like, so if you don't like talking to the patients, or you feel that you don't have good human skills of talking to someone, of able to make someone listen to you, of making them feel that they are listened to, maybe you shouldn't be an intensivist. Maybe you should be a radiologist. A very important
So
part.
what is an intensivist?
Intensivists usually will be doctors who specialize in internal medicine. You've done more than what a GP would have, added 4 years. So you become very good at diagnosing and treating hypertension, diabetes, pneumonia, meningitis, gastroenteritis, just about everything at a specialized level, admitting and triaging patients, while the GP will be someone who will be referring patients to an internist. And then intensivist usually then is someone who works then in ICU, high care, intubate patients, monitor their vitals. But let me walk you back again. So you know your personality. If you're good at talking to people, maybe you don't want to be a radiologist, because radiologists don't talk to people much, right? So that's very important. Do you like what you do? You don't want to be a cardiologist if you really don't want to see blood. What kind of a cardiologist doesn't see blood, right? It sounds funny, but even among us as doctors, we like different things. I like being in theater. I like being in the EP lab. Other doctors like to consult. So you got to ask yourself all those questions. Am I good at making the patients feel comfortable talking to them, make them feel listened to, make them feel that they are welcome to be here? Patients will tell you they walk into a doctor's room, in 2 minutes, the doctor is already writing a prescription. It cannot be. It cannot be. You're in the wrong profession if you do that, right? So,
that's good. So while you're mentioning about, I think there's a personality part, knowing that do you like people? But in the studies, is there something that trains you guys in terms of how to communicate to patients?
No, unfortunately.
You don't have a communications model or something of...
No. There's a lot of things that entrusted to the doctors. I'm not saying doctors are special. I'm sure as a chartered accountant, a banker, a lawyer, there's certain things you wish it could have been done differently at undergrad. One of the things in medicine, we're not taught how to talk to patients, how to listen to patients. For instance, I'm a cardiologist. A vast majority of the patients that I treat with heart failure, they've got some degree of depression, but we hardly ask those questions. And if patients raise them, we just move forward as if we didn't hear them, or we don't know how to manage that. So no, we're not taught that. We're not taught how to deal with finances, which is another reason why you may want to go into GP, general practice, early earnings, compared to doing additional 4 years, 6 years, 10 years after medical school, late earnings versus early earnings. Remember, at the end of the day, you need to make money. You do need to make money.
True.
Right? So we spoke about personality. You know who you are. Can you listen to someone attentively, or make them feel that you're interested in their story? Then can be a physician where you see patients. If you feel that your personality doesn't allow you to do that, radiologist. Do you want to see patients over and over again? You saw Mrs. Kumalo with a stroke, and this year she's got heart failure. This year she's got kidney failure. Or don't. If you don't want to do that, then you don't want to see chronic recurring patients, then be an anesthesiologist. You see them once and you're done, right? So all those things are important.
I think just to add, at a distance, I feel like it may sound irresponsible, but I actually think it's actually more responsible to be true to who you are because you always think putting the patient first.
Yeah.
Like if
But
you
you've got to
don't,
put yourself first before you put someone else first, so that you're there for them. You've shown up, right? So all those things. So talk about personality, who you are. You know who you are. By the end of the day, you probably see 20 patients. By the time the patient comes in, you're thinking about this, and you're absolutely not interested. So don't be a patient-doctor contact. You can do radiology. You don't want to be seeing recurring patients. Be anesthesiologist. Then we spoke about earnings. We don't come from the same backgrounds, and it will never be coming from the same background. You might want to, over and above servicing your community, your patients, early earnings, then become a GP, because early earnings for you, you might maybe studied medicine when you're older, you've got family, you might be coming from a really disadvantaged background. You've got lots of people looking up to you. As soon as you finish, can you help younger siblings? Early earnings, then maybe GP. Longevity, when one talks about earnings, someone who specializes, even though they earn later than you, they have got a higher capacity, all relative, to earn better than you. So you could have been earning for 10 years, but by the time they get into practice 10 years later than you, and forward that to another 10 years, they could have made more money. So late earnings, but higher earnings, right?
that's good. Is it a myth that people who specialize suffer more burnout than people who are in general practice?
I don't know if that is necessarily true, because there are two different kinds of scenarios. The other one, like you said, you're dealing with, let's say you're 27, you go into private practice, you're quite young, and you may be dealing with very sick people, demanding practice. That also can give you a burnout. If you decide that I'm going to go and specialize, it's demanding, because as a doctor, when you specialize, you're fully employed. You're going to be in a state hospital, you're fully employed. Then after hours, you need to study. You've got exams coming up. So it's a different kind of psychological and physical stress. You're going to be doing more calls for 4 years at least, which a GP doesn't have. So as a GP, you've got leverage to say, yeah, I've got early earnings. It's an advantage. I'm going to design my practice such a way that it suits me and my family. I'm going to work Monday to Fridays. I'm going to work Monday to Thursday. Or I'm single, I don't have kids, and I really need this money. I'm going to work Monday to Monday. You're flexible in doing that. But if you go and specialize, you have a boss who has a boss. You have to study. So it's different.
You mentioned about something, if you're specializing, you also full-time employed.
Yeah, always.
Is it an option? Or
No, there's no option. Because where we learn to specialize, it's in hospital. We don't have a department of specialization where you come at 8 and leave at 4. Okay, today we're going to learn about how to cut someone. You've got to have that someone to cut.
Yeah.
Right? Of course, under the supervision. Yeah. So you are a full-time employee, which is another thing. During our times, it was relatively easy to get into the institutions. There were racial bias, there's no doubt about it. But now it's a different issue with younger doctors. The state, unfortunately, frees a lot of posts, so it's a bottleneck. You've got so many people who want to specialize, but you've got such few places where they can go and specialize, right? So, sure. Yeah. So it might be difficult to get into the system.
That's true. It's a tricky one that I'm going to ask, but do you think there's pros and cons for either?
Of course, yeah. Like I said, in private practice, early on at 27, 28, 25, you are your own boss. You determine your own hours, flexibility, you're earning better, right? But long term, difficult for you to emigrate, difficult for you to get a job overseas. Your colleagues who specialize, they probably catch up in terms of earning power and surpass you in years to come. But you've got very much flexibility right from the onset. You may not have the boss for the rest of your life. If you don't want to have a boss for a couple of years, then GP is yours. But if you can tolerate a boss, you're good with people, you're not driven by early earnings for different reasons. We don't frown upon that. We come from different backgrounds. Can wait, then specialize.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's good. What helped you make the decision for you personally?
I was just very fortunate when it comes to medicine, extremely fortunate. First of all, I lost a year after matric because I came from Umlazi and my parents moved from one place to the other. We didn't have a basic home. We didn't have internet. We didn't have ChatGPT. We didn't have cell phones. So where we used to live, the mail came that I had a full bursary. I was accepted at university, but I didn't have access to that. So I thought they didn't reply to me. So I lost a year, but after that, everything just fell into place. So I got to university a year later. Fortunately, I never failed, never repeated a year. But we had something that was extremely important to me called community service. So community service, basically, you go and see how these patients live like, the patients you see in casualty. For me, King Edward, Clarewood, RK Khan, Eddington, Prince Mshieni, see how they live like, because the degrees of poverty are still very vast and different, right? So people live in squalor. So with the community health, it was extremely eye-opening. And I will never forget the day I decided I'm going to be a specialist. We went to a men's hostel those days. Migrant labor system for the young man at his prime is taken away from his family. He must go work in the urban areas. So they have a small room, 53 square meters, 4 people supposed to live there. But because of social circumstances, someone from Umzindo, Komaz, Uchu, you bring your brother to live with you under the mattress, under the bed. You bring someone else so that you can share the rent. So a place that is supposed to house 4 people end up housing 16 people, because the more people you bring in to live with you, the less rent you pay, right? Obviously, it was also neglected. And so we used to go and see how people live like, because you're surprised. You're treating this person for this communicable disease and they come back with it again. You treat this someone for sexually transmitted diseases and they come back again. But you never ask this guy, do you use any form of protection? How many partners do you have? Bring your partner, right? But you expect them to be treated and go back and never come back to you. So community health opened our eyes because we used to go and see this place. And I realized that's not what I wanted to do. As important as it was and still is, social services, but that's not what I wanted. I saw how people lived, and it becomes like a real recurring revolving door. You treat, they come back, you treat, they come back. It's almost like when you get into the room, your house is flooded with water, and the first thing you do, you start mopping instead of closing the tap.
Sure.
You have to close the tap and then mop. Right? I felt that we were just mopping and mopping and mopping, and the tap was still running. So I said to myself, that's not what I want to do. Unfortunately, as an individual doctor, or even as a group of doctors, it's difficult to influence government to do their own part. Yeah.
That's good. So eventually you decided, okay, you will specialize. So when you initially specialized, how does it work? Did you go straight into cardiology, or do you first do something in between?
Yeah, that's also extremely important. So before you become a cardiologist, every cardiologist out there is a specialist physician. Right? So before you become a cardiologist, you must do 4 years of what we call internal medicine. We spoke about. So basically, it's general medicine, but at a specialized level. So you treat anything from pneumonia to gastroenteritis to some skin conditions, basically everything, right? The difference between the GP and the physician will be you've done this for extensive years of training, but you also are better equipped in triaging patients, getting them admitted, managing intravenous medication, fluids, and stuff like that. So that's a specialist. So once you finish that, then you apply for cardiology, which is additional 3 years. So after your medical school, your internship, community service, it's 4 years of internal medicine and then 3 years of cardiology.
Sure.
And if you want to be an electrician, then you add 2 more years. It's doable. I've done that. So if you love it. So remember, let's go back where we started, your personality. Be truthful to yourself. Can you do this? Do you want to do this? And then do circumstances, your own circumstances, will allow you to do this. Because also you don't want to go and specialize and then 2 years later you stop because you always knew you didn't want to do this. Or you know that your circumstance, you've got maybe 4 kids all at school. Maybe your wife is not working. Maybe your husband is not earning enough, and it becomes a desperate situation. Then you stop. So these are all the things that you need to factor in your dreams versus your circumstances. So your personality and circumstances.
I feel like that's so good. You said something that was important, that you have to look after yourself first, and as a byproduct of looking after yourself, you can then better look after the patients that come to the door, which I'm guessing is a big component to this question for the young doctors that are watching, Uti. Should I specialize or not? And I love that you take into the beginning that look at yourself, look at your personality before you make the decision.
And your circumstances.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, so it's very important, particularly for black doctors who come largely from deprived areas with lots of siblings. Obviously, I'm generalizing. Your early earnings may be more important than someone else who comes from a hood or a household where both your parents are professionals or business people, or money is not the biggest problem. So it's easy for you to defer any earnings, therefore you specialize. Once again, intertwined with the personality. The other one is gender. I've never been a female, but it's an added issue for female doctors. Being a mom, when do you want to become a mom? Being a wife, what kind of a husband are you going to have? I think safety, it might be relatively more dangerous for a female being alone to drive at night, because as a specialist, you may have to be called at night to go and do emergency surgery, to go and see a patient, which as a GP, you don't have to deal with that. So there's certain things that you have to look at beyond just earnings, beyond just your personality, is gender, unfortunately. Because you can't dichotomize who we are as doctors.
Yeah, I feel like, that's so good. It's a lot to take into consideration. And I feel like the gender part, most people don't speak about. And I think we should actually have a separate episode because I think the world has made it so in such a way where everybody feels like so touchy-feely to speak about it. But it's real life. And, just speaking about, will this lead to the path that with your family that you're building, is this decision, will it be good for that type of family that you're trying to build? And it's, I guess, it's also just saying that it's not that you're not going to do medicine, but you might have to do it in a way that works hand in hand with the family that you are building, which I think is a good conversation for us to have,
Obviously, I'm not qualified to be talking on this because it affects female differently from us, whether you like it or not, but it does. And sometimes you see this a female who, the doctor, chartered accountant, or a lawyer, or whatever specialty they want to be, they focus on their career, and then by the time they say, okay, I've done everything, they're 37. Do you want to have kids? What kind of man I'm going to meet now? If I'm 37, probably I'm going to meet a 55-year-old divorcee who's got a baggage, who may not want to have kids. Those are things that women have challenges on, but it would be better if it's addressed by a woman. But just observing, because I've been around, you realize that there's certain challenges that, as a woman, it's different from your colleague, So those are the issues that face women. Even at work, you see this cycling way that women are treated by their male counterparts. If you really cannot stomach that, I'm not saying you're running away from the problem.
Yeah.
Very early on, you might decide, you know what, I'm going to open my own practice, I'm going to be my own boss. Or you can go ahead and face these challenges. Once again, depend on your personality. But it's a huge, huge issue, gender in medicine. All right.
While saying that, now this is going to be a biased question because you did specialize. I mean, I'm guessing you can't speak on the other side, but what are maybe your top 2, if you have 3, things that people don't tell you about the journey now when you decide that, okay, I'm going to specialize? If what are some of the things that you wish you had people tell you about the journey that you now embark on to become a specialist?
I can't think of anything because coming from where I come, you kind of able to navigate most challenges. So you develop thick skin very early on. By the time I went to medical school, I've been in riots, we've been to many toys, we've seen people get killed in front of you. So it kind of like prepared you mentally. So there's nothing that surprised me really that I didn't think would not happen. Maybe the gravity of it happening, but if you're going to specialize, that's going to be very challenging 4 years. But like I said earlier on, it opened doors for better earnings in the future. While discouraging it, a world is a global village. It's easier for you to access outside jobs, outside your country, if you're a specialist. But coming back locally as well, the issue is that we haven't touched on. If you're going to be a GP, where are you going to be a GP at, right? So as a specialist, it confines you to a hospital. So most specialists are attached to a hospital where they admit patients. So there will be more congregation of doctors in urban areas, semi-urban areas, where hospitals are at. As a GP, it might be a bit difficult unless you find a niche within general practice, So you might find yourself to have this relatively good early earnings, we spoke about it, to move into a semi-rural or rural area where there's less competition, right? Yeah, because really, do you want to open practice when there's within a few meters there's another GP, Yeah, so you might want to consider the location, very important.
Sure. I feel like, there's a lot to take into consideration. I think even as a person who doesn't study or didn't study medicine and maybe does study it through this podcast and other podcasts, I'm guessing as a person who has to make the decision, there's a lot to take into consideration. But I think you've laid out quite a good roadmap for the questions that one can ask themselves before making the decisions. Well, given where we come from, there's something called black tax. I don't know if it's the same internationally or all over the world. And it's not to seclude other people who are watching this podcast, but you might find that maybe we call it black tax because it's prominent in our people, but there are other racial groups that maybe have some context of a black text.
Oh yeah, so everyone has their context of black text. It's more prevalent to us,
And
given the socio-economic ills of the world, particularly our country. So it's a bit more challenging for African doctors and other fields of professionals not to be able to, or to ignore that completely. It's almost inconceivable. To a certain degree, you pay something back to your family. But you have to, but sometimes you're too young to understand this. And there is an example of a guy I went to medical school with. I was at Mains High School before Mains is what it is now. Mighty doers out there. He went to Vuguzak, which was a prime high school in Mlazi, probably the whole of Durban, if not KZN. Prime, exceptionally good. He was extremely intelligent, extremely intelligent. I remember at medical school writing essays, and I would write like 3-4 pages and get 30%, and he would write like half a page and get 80%, and he used to laugh at me. So Vezi, it's not about the amount that you write, it's the quality. Obviously, he was super, super smart. From Kwasi, I'm from Kwachi, came from Kwasi. Exceptionally talented. But he came from a very poor background, much poorer than me, much poorer than me. And so what he used to do at medical school, he would get side jobs. You know, he'll go and work weekends, and then sometimes, unfortunately, the more you earn, the more it's expected of you to give. He started taking jobs after hours during the week. So no matter how smart he was now cutting back on the hours of training to become a doctor. And unfortunately, he didn't make it beyond third year. He was excluded because his marks just went down. So you look at this guy, when you have to juggle these balls of social ills in your profession, if he could just bury his hand in the sand and just stay in medical school because he had a bursary, forget, inverted commas, about his social ills, finish medical school, do his internship, and then look after his family. They could have lived on crumbs for 5-6 years. But at the end of the day, because he couldn't juggle the balls of the social ills and his circumstances, he ended up not being a doctor. I don't know where he is right now. And whoever was dependent on him must have suffered when he couldn't become a doctor and he couldn't earn the money that he was earning.
Sure.
So it's about juggling your own life. Can you sustain this until you get what you want? I.e., can you finish medical school? Hopefully you can. Once you finish medical school, can you be in this similar situation for the next 4 years, right? Fortunately, the government now is paying relatively well compared to before, I must say. You know, the government is doing a lot better in terms of the salaries of the state doctors. But once again, I'm not the one to comment about doctors' salaries in the state government because I'm in private practice. But it's better than before. So can you sustain yourself for the next 4 years to get this degree and be able to go back and service your family? So those are all the things you have to ask yourself. And no person can tell you what's right for you, you know. But sometimes you just have to soldier on.
Sure. No, I think this is a good episode. What a beautiful blueprint for all the future doctors. I also love what you just mentioned now at the end. You know, it gives me the thought that if you have to piggyback someone and climb the ladder, it's much harder than you first climbing the ladder, getting to the top, and then throwing a rope down
and pull them
and
up.
then pulling them up. And I think maybe some of us have sometimes experienced that with family. That as you're trying to get to the top, you feel like you're piggybacking people and it's taking longer. Whereas sometimes...
Or the ladder might break.
Or the ladder might break, exactly. And then everybody's at the bottom. you know, where sometimes it's painful to say, guys, not over manager, not for now. Just give me a bit of time. Yeah, just give me a bit of time. And then it's easier now to say, okay, I can now, you know, use a better system to pull people up.
Yeah. And that's applicable at all levels. Like I said, is it right at the end of medical school where this is become, for you as an individual, the most important thing is the determinant, what you call a rate limiting step. Then you say, okay, I'm going to be a general practitioner, or can you add another 4 years? After 4 years, can you add another 3 years? You know, there are pros and cons. Like I said, we went, so just to finish off, we spoke about personality. We spoke about earnings, early earnings, but intertwined with the earnings, it is relatively capped if you're a GP compared to late earnings at a higher level. Location, where you're going to be at, not just locally. Can you go overseas? Easier to go overseas if you're a specialist. And more, learn more, then come back compared to if you're a GP. But as a GP, your own boss very early on. You have more time, you've got a bit more money, more time to yourself, more time to your family, you know. While if you specialize, you don't have that leverage. You don't have that luxury. The other thing we spoke about, you cannot change gender.
Yeah.
You know. So, and obviously the last one that we spoke about is your own social issues. You know, where do you come from? Can you bury your head in the sand for a few more years? Or as you put it quite eloquently, go up the ladder alone and then throw a rope rather than trying to get everyone piggybacking on you and going up the ladder with them.
Sure. Dr. V, it's been good. I think it was such a good third episode. I feel like I got advice. As much as we're speaking about the career path for doctors, I feel like all principles are parallel. So you can apply this in your accounting job. You can apply this if you're studying plumbing.
Yes.
You know, do you want to specialize, or do you need to start working quickly with your own business? Same thing. You're an interior architect.
Yeah.
I think that's what's beautiful, that in a sense, we're speaking to it sounds like we're speaking to a group of people, but it applies, I think, to most people. And even people who have already maybe been in practice and they want to further their profession and they want to do better. It's still relevant questions, I feel, they can still ask now, even if they've been practicing over some time. So, yeah, thank you for a good episode.
Yeah, thank you. It's been good. Thank you for everyone for listening with Mawanda Creative Replay. It's been good. Thank you very much.